Ji Lee is just your typical sharp-tongued high schooler who wants nothing more than to hop into a VR game and chill with his gorgeous girlfriend. But Thunder-kun clearly didn't get the memo, because the guy zaps him before he can even log in, and the next thing Ji Lee knows, boom, he's inside the very game he was about to play. He first dreams he becomes ridiculously overpowered, swoops in to rescue his girlfriend from some thugs, and is moments away from a heroic kiss, only for the whole scene to evaporate. So, reality hits when he wakes up to a chameleon smacking a kiss on his face. Instead of spawning at the beginner's village, he's dumped in a scorching desert that stretches endlessly in every direction. The brutal heat weighs on him immediately. His body aches, his breathing grows heavy, and he tries to contact Xiaomei, but the system throws an error. Confused because there's no way he'd forget her username. He keeps trying, but after repeated failures, he gives up and starts walking toward where he assumes the village must be. Hours pass, and he realizes the desert is inescapable no matter what direction he chooses. With his sweat pouring out and dehydration kicking in, he even attempts to reach customer support, only to be met with silence. Irritated and exhausted, he decides he's done with this nightmare and tries to log out. Except the system refuses. Panic crawls up his spine. He spams the logout button until the interface freezes and reboots. When it comes back, the game throws out a chilling new directive. Survive for infinity hours. That's when Ji Lee collapses, crushed by the realization that he's trapped. All he wanted was to impress Xiaomei. Now he's stuck in a desolate wasteland without help, escape, or answers. After 8 agonizing hours of despair, he finally snaps out of it. If he wants to live, he has to act. His first priority is water. His throat is raw, his body weak. He spots a stone on the ground, instantly recognizing it as a type often found near water sources. He follows the trail with renewed hope, unaware a starving wolf has started stalking him. Eventually, he reaches a cave and sees a droplet of water falling into a small, bowl-like rock. Overwhelmed, he rushes in and drinks greedily. Once he recovers his breath, he checks his inventory and discovers the map only shows areas he has personally explored. His status isn't any better. Every attribute is bottom tier, and he doesn't even have an offensive skill. If anything strong shows up, his best move is to run. To prepare, he equips his starter gear, draws his massive sword, and practices until he adjusts to its weight. The blade is sharp enough to slice through stone, which boosts his confidence, until a noise echoes deeper inside the cave. He freezes, then carefully investigates. He spots a bone, then an entire mountain of human skeletons piled high. Any normal person would sprint out, but Ji Lee starts inspecting the bones. The bite marks reveal one thing. A wolf did this. That realization slams into him and he takes off running, but too late. A wolf lunges at him and he barely ducks in time, though it still tears into his arm. This isn't just any wolf, it's a desert wolf. Level 5, insanely durable, and capable of sprinting 15 kilometers per h. Running won't save him now. He tightens his grip on his sword and forces himself to fight. In real life, Ji Lee was the youngest 6th Dan Kendo practitioner in his city. His mom, absolutely obsessed with Kendo legend Mu Chun-ya, shoved him into lessons. Standing before his teacher, he realized he feared opponents because he was weak. So he trained relentlessly. He got beaten, humiliated, injured, but he refused to quit until he became the best. And even then, he kept pushing. That mindset surges back as the wolf attacks again. Ji Lee ducks and counters, but his blade bounces off uselessly. The creature smacks him with its tail, sending him flying. He finally understands. His low rank means his attacks barely register. His only hope is the wolf's weak spot, its belly. But the monster is too strong and too fast, and Ji Lee is running out of stamina. His XP bar reminds him he has just one shot. When the wolf charges, he makes a risky gamble. He lets it bite into his shoulder, then plunges his sword upward into its underbelly. It works. The wolf dies, and he's showered with XP, leveling up so fast his wounds heal instantly. But he has no clue this is only the opening chapter of the hell awaiting him. The game notifies him that a mysterious item is waiting in the shop. With new attribute points earned from the kill, he opens his inventory and is bombarded with awesome-looking weapons he can't unlock yet. He realizes leveling up is the only way to access advanced gear, and even hire stylish mercenary teams specializing in attack, defense, magic, assassination, and support. For now, though, he can only buy basics like bread and water. Checking his stats again, he sees that despite full HP, he's still weak. He distributes points into physique, strength, and stamina, feeling power course through him. But as soon as he steps outside, an entire pack of desert wolves surrounds him. Ji Lee draws his sword and wipes them out one by one. By the time the fighting ends, he's gained 15 levels and unlocked a huge chunk of his inventory. Excited by his rapid progress, he explores further, until he stumbles upon something disturbing. A group of dead wolves drained completely of blood. Whatever killed them wasn't human. Then something flashes in his peripheral vision. He spots an alien-looking being casually skewering wolves like kebabs, and then vanishing into thin air. Gili tries to track him, thinking maybe another trapped player exists, but his system suddenly blares a danger warning. Before he can react, something attacks. He slashes on instinct and cuts off a writhing tentacle. From the shadows emerges a high-level creature, the wandering dominator. Unlike the wolves, this monster regenerates its limb instantly, and its presence alone makes Gili tremble. The system identifies it as a predator of predators, devastatingly fast and notorious for drinking monster blood. Gili tries to steady his nerves as the dominator steps forward. The alien blurs, and Gili dodges while attempting a counterstrike, but the creature vanishes and reappears behind him, sending him flying with a single blow. Blood spills from Gili's mouth as he's struck again. Confused, he notices the monster could kill him instantly, but instead hands his sword back, almost instructing him on where to attack. It hits him. The creature is toying with him. Gili makes another attempt, giving it everything he has, but he ends up hurting himself, dropping to the ground as his sword's durability drops by 80%. The Dominator's speed is beyond anything he can keep up with. Suddenly, the alien grabs him and hurls him into the air. With cold disdain, it mocks humans, calling them pests that should be exterminated. Gili slices through its grip and slides backward heroically, accusing it of projecting its own insecurities. The Dominator sneers, saying centuries have passed since a human appeared, and his body buzzes with excitement. Gili admits he hasn't felt this kind of thrill in forever. He thinks of his family and friends waiting for him back home. He refuses to die here. Lightning crackles around him as a divine surge floods his body. He's activated a rare god's blessing, raising all attributes by 100. The Dominator grins, delighted by the challenge. Gili attacks relentlessly, slicing into the creature until his blade loses all durability. He tosses the ruined weapon aside and resorts to punching, desperate for the power boost that will come from victory. But the alien uses its absurd speed to outmaneuver him and slash him from behind. Gili staggers as the Dominator calls him a pest, no matter how strong he becomes. Even with divine strength, Gili can't overpower him. Then the alien rises into the sky, gathers lightning, and unleashes it all onto the broken boy below. Gili feels his life fading. His XP hits 0, everything goes dark. Yet somehow he wakes up, no longer in the desert. He's inside an unfamiliar village, alive but utterly confused about how he got there. He wonders if he somehow got logged out, yet the system window still floats in front of him, proving he's still trapped here. But the last thing he remembers is that monster tearing him apart, so waking up alive feels impossible. Even the wounds on his body match the injuries he took, leaving him even more bewildered. Just as he starts convincing himself he survived, the door swings open and a stunning girl walks in, startled to see him conscious. Gili freezes for a moment, then awkwardly waves. She rushes to call her grandfather, Bullied, announcing that their patient has finally woken up. Gili assumes he's ended up in some beginner area, but everything becomes clearer when the old man arrives. Gili insists he died, saying that his body was completely pierced, only for the girl to explain that her grandfather found him nearly lifeless in the desert during a hunt. Bullied takes a puff from his pipe and calmly tells him this isn't a newbie village, nor is anyone here an NPC. This is the real world. Since Gili can't understand, he points at the system window, which obviously they can't see, leaving both of them worried as he gestures wildly at empty space. They conclude he must have suffered a head injury and gone insane, but Gili keeps rambling that he's stuck in the game and can't contact reality. When he panics about going home, Bullied tells him bluntly that escape is impossible. Anyone who enters the Latanya desert never gets out. Gili argues that if no one escapes, how did the two of them appear here? The girl explains that they were on a mission to slay a dragon in the Argama continent when a storm swept them away, and when they regained consciousness, they were already trapped in this desert, a place said to imprison even gods. The only rumored exit lies within the Kabri god's palace, but countless people have sought it and none have returned. Over time, survivors simply accepted their fate and built lives here, waiting for death. Bullied adds that new people show up every year, yet no one has ever left. So the best advice he can give is to accept this world as his new reality. Before leaving, he asks his granddaughter Sally to show Gili around town. Gili refuses to accept any of it and remains convinced he's been isekai'd into the game. Right then, another system notification appears, an official quest commanding him to avenge the Kabri god. It claims he was reincarnated with the deity's protection and must remove the seal that binds the god. The mission instructs him to locate the palace, defeat the monster Nabus, and free the Kabri god. But what really grabs his attention is the reward, the key to breaking the desert seal. Lying in the grass, he scrolls through the system, trying to piece together his situation, now convinced that escaping might actually be possible. Sally eventually calls out to him, saying she searched everywhere. He claims he just needed some space, but the endless stretch of desert catches his eye, and he asks whether that's the Latnaya Desert. She explains that their whole town is surrounded by it because of its massive size. Gili asks how long it would take to find the Kabri God's palace, leaving Sally stunned as she asks if he's seriously planning to look for it. When he keeps quiet, she warns him that the palace is likely just a legend and wandering into the desert is certain death. But Gili insists he already died once, so he'll do whatever he must to return home. As they head back together, she keeps questioning his intentions, but he confirms he's not joking. She argues that the desert is filled with monsters even Grandpa Boule avoids. Yet Gili, delusional with confidence, claims he's extremely strong. Suddenly something crashes from the sky right in front of them. 3 men step out of the smoke, announcing that their target has fallen right into their trap. Gili coughs through the dust, confused, but before he can ask more, Sally jumps in front of him and blocks an incoming blade with her fire magic. The man, Bobin, seems delighted to see her, though she clearly isn't happy about it. Gili asks why they're being attacked, and Sally explains these are bandits, more dangerous than monsters because they survive by stealing from people. Bobin summons his shadow swords and fixes his gaze on Gili like he's fresh prey. Gili has never seen that ability before, but there's no time to figure it out as Bobin mocks them, warning that Sally escaped him once and he won't let it happen again. Sally bursts into flames from sheer anger and tells Gili to run, get her grandfather while she holds the bandits off. Meanwhile in the village, Boule tends to his crops but suddenly senses a storm forming, making him worry for his granddaughter. Back at the fight, Bobin toys with them, saying he'll never allow Gili to flee for help, and since Sally's spells can't harm him, she should come quietly in exchange for Gili's safety. She refuses without hesitation, and Bobin's pride takes a hit. She begs Gili again to go get the old man, since only he can defeat Bobin. But Gili refuses to abandon her. Before he can finish, Bobin blitzes forward and slams Gili's head into a tree, calling him worthless. But Gili fires back with insults of his own, provoking Bobin even further. Bobin challenges him to prove his courage with strength instead of words. Gili grabs the man's wrist, twists it, and tells him that he's not as tough as he pretends to be. After all, he opened with a sneak attack instead of a fair fight. With one powerful swing, Gili sends the assassin flying, leaving Bobin stunned that the boy actually managed to dislocate his wrist. Gili quickly realizes just how tough Gili's opponent is. Even after pumping so many points into his stats, he still couldn't overpower the guy. Then he notices Sally chatting comfortably with Gili, and both the boy and the girl turn toward him, waiting to hear what he wants now. His pride and his wrist are both aching, yet he repeats the same demand he always makes. He wants Sally to be his girlfriend. The girl shoots him down instantly without hesitation. Even Gili finds the whole scene amusing, though Bobin definitely doesn't. He snaps, accusing Sally of rejecting him because of Gili, and Sally immediately blushes and denies every bit of his nonsense. Bobin just wants a reason to brawl, so he challenges Gili directly, saying a real man shouldn't hide behind a girl. He vows that if he loses, he'll stop bothering her for good. The moment he says this, Gili's system triggers a side mission: defeat Bobin and earn a map of the desert. That reward grabs Gili's attention, and he accepts instantly, even as Sally looks at him with concern. Right then, Bobin draws his shadow sword, ready to begin. Sally tries one last time to talk Gili out of fighting someone notorious for being an assassin. She explains that assassins fight using shadow energy and insane speed, and their shadow-coated weapons hit with terrifying force. But none of that scares Gili anymore. After dying once already, fear isn't really something he feels now. With that, both of them rush forward. As Gili is about to swing at Bobin, a wave of regret hits him. How did his life end up like this? Still, defeating Bobin could bring him one step closer to escaping this nightmare. Unfortunately for him, the shadow assassin dodges effortlessly, even laughing at Gili's attempts to land a hit. Then Bobin kicks into high speed, moving so fast Gili can't even track him, which only boosts the assassin's confidence because Gili appears totally outclassed. Gili grows irritated, unable to understand why Bobin still isn't attacking him. Sally again suggests going back to the old man, but Gili refuses to leave her there. Besides, he has another reason now, which he quietly hints at. Sally doesn't get it and presses him for an explanation, and he admits that something about this entire game feels wrong. From the moment he arrived, nothing made sense, and the more time passed, the more obvious it became that someone is manipulating events behind the scenes. Before he can say more, Bobin hurls a sword toward him and mocks him for zoning out. Gili fires back, pointing out that the assassin hasn't even launched a real attack yet, so why should he be frightened? Strangely, that's exactly what Bobin wanted to hear. He claims he doesn't strike unarmed weaklings, which is why he's giving Gili a weapon now, to make it a fair duel. Gili catches the sword with one hand while Bobin keeps bragging about how he doesn't pick on those beneath him just to impress Sally, though she clearly couldn't care less. Gili calls out his hypocrisy, reminding him that he started the fight earlier with a sneak attack, so he's not nearly as honorable as he claims. After they're done trash-talking, Gili braces himself to face a shadow assassin for the desert map he desperately needs, fully aware it won't be easy. Without hesitating, Gili charges again, but Bobin's speed overwhelms him immediately. He leaps and swings, and Gili barely manages to block. While Gili is focused on that strike, Sally shouts a warning, something is behind him. When he spins around, a clone of Bobin is already attacking. Gili scrambles to defend himself from blows coming from every direction, but he can't keep up. Every time he locates the real Bobin, the assassin vanishes again. Even Sally begins to worry when Bobin manages to slash Gili's shoulder, dropping his HP. The assassin offers him a chance to surrender, but Gili refuses. He checks his system, activates a healing skill, and regains some HP, only for Bobin's lackeys to burst out laughing. To them, a healer stands no chance. Gili snaps back that Bobin seems scared of being defeated by a healer, which finally makes the assassin stop walking away. Gili prepares for another round, and Bobin does too, this time using his shadow assassin power to create multiple clones. Gili hates this new complication for obvious reasons, so he studies the group closely. He realizes something important. Assassins depend heavily on using clones to distract their opponent, while the real one goes in for the kill. On top of that, they can switch positions instantly, making things even more complicated. Still annoyed with Gili's earlier sarcasm, Bobin declares that he'll show his true strength. But Gili honestly doesn't care. He charges into the group of clones while Bobin orders them to play with their new target. One of the clones swings at Gili, but he manages to block, knocking the blade backward from the impact. The clone attacks again, and Gili dodges and deflects over and over, though he's painfully aware he's barely holding his own against just one attacker, while two more wait their turn. Another clone rushes from behind, and right as it looks like Gili is about to take a fatal blow, he slips out of the strike effortlessly, stunning everyone watching, including Bobin. Gili realizes he narrowly avoided dying again, and at that exact moment, his system floods him with notifications. He's unlocked several hidden abilities all at once, and Gili is definitely not complaining. He still has 2 clones left to beat, and now that Bobin has witnessed his true strength, the assassin is even more thrilled. Even with his upgraded power, Gili managed only to injure a clone, meaning the real fight is just beginning. Bobin snaps his fingers for his sword, and the blade shoots out of Gili's grip and returns to its master. The shadow assassin admits he misjudged him earlier, but promises he won't repeat that mistake. All 3 clones then fuse their swords into 2 long spears and slam them into the ground at the same moment, causing an eerie shadow to spread around Gili. From within that darkness, spears start bursting out in random directions, forcing him to duck and weave desperately. One spear cuts him, and he realizes with a sinking feeling that his HP has dropped, and he's unarmed. While he's scrambling to figure out what to do, Bobin emerges from the darkness, striking him and declaring he's here to take Gili's life. Suddenly, a ring of lightning wraps around Gili and sends him soaring upward. Just as he's about to be hit again, a bolt crashes down from the sky and Grandpa Boulay appears, stopping Gili's punch effortlessly. He orders both boys to stand down. Gili trembles from the rush of adrenaline, frustrated that the old man stopped what could have been his strongest blow yet. Sally runs over, worried, and Gili assures her he's fine. Grandpa tells the 2 kids to head home with him because a storm is rolling in. Bobin doesn't like that one bit and immediately assumes Gili is just hiding behind Grandpa's arrival. The old man turns back and warns the assassin that if he hadn't intervened at that exact moment, Bobin wouldn't even be alive. The confidence in his voice shakes Bobin, and he realizes the old man isn't lying. But his pride refuses to accept it. How could a low-level healer possibly deal a fatal blow to someone like him? He yells that it's impossible, insisting he would have been the one to win. Meanwhile, Gili's system updates, confirming he completed the challenge and earned the map. Grandpa urges them once more to leave before the storm hits. Surprisingly, even Bobin's assistants agree and tell him it's better to go. But the assassin keeps shouting after Gili, demanding he return to fight again and again. Gili ignores him completely. There's no reason for him to continue. Back in the village, Sally tends to his wounds, scolding him for moving too much and making it harder for her to treat him. He apologizes for causing her so much trouble, but Sally smiles, grateful that someone finally defended her. Gili, however, is lost in thought, bothered by the fact that he can't heal on his own. Curiosity gets to him, so he asks if she and Grandpa knew Bobin beforehand. Sally explains that they were raised together like siblings. She finishes stitching him up and gets ready to leave. Gili looks out at the rain, thinking of his mother and imagining how worried she must be. But now that he has the map, he's hopeful that he'll find God's palace and reunite with her soon. He plans to set out as soon as the rain stops, but then a new notification appears, saying he's obtained a key. Confused, he pulls a golden key out of thin air. It turns out that after battles, he can receive random treasure chests, and this key lets him open them whenever he wants. The thought fills him with hope. He puts on his jacket, ready to get moving. Just then, Grandpa Wu Bule walks in. The old man apologizes for not checking on him sooner. Looking over Geely's injuries, he says he didn't expect Geely would defeat Bobin, the village's strongest assassin. Geely insists he only won because Bobin underestimated him. But Grandpa shakes his head. He explains that Bobin isn't just powerful. He possesses incredible determination and mental strength too. This victory wasn't just luck. Geely asks what happened to Bobin to make him this way, and Grandpa begins recalling the past. He explains that he and Sally came to the desert many years ago during a heavy rainstorm. Near a house, they encountered a demonic beast attacking the residents, but they arrived too late. Several people were already dead. Only a young survivor remained, and Grandpa saved him with lightning magic. The monster lived but escaped. The orphan child was Bobin, and Grandpa took him in. But ever since that tragedy, Bobin dedicated his entire life to hunting the monster and avenging his parents. That obsession eventually pushed aside everything good Grandpa tried to teach him. Geely can't help but think, if even Grandpa couldn't defeat that creature, how terrifying must it be? He realizes he's no match for the monsters out there and turns to Grandpa saying he needs to be trained if he wants to escape this place. Grandpa brushes him off at first. Geely insists again, then realizes he's being just as reckless as Bobin. But suddenly Grandpa tells him to meet him at the hillside. And if Geely can pass his test, he'll train him. Geely brightens immediately, promising he'll do it. Grandpa, meanwhile, notices something special in the boy. A potential strong enough to possibly lead them out of this cursed land. Just then, Geely gets a new notification. A daily mission with exercises that look incredibly difficult. Since he needs those attribute points, he decides to take on the mission anyway. Early the next morning, long before anyone else wakes up, Geely is already training with a massive log, flexing his muscles and showing off his hard-earned abs. Even he admits to himself that he enjoys pushing his limits, and by the time he finishes, he collapses onto the ground, completely drained. As he catches his breath, he starts debating where to assign his attribute points and settles on boosting stamina and defense. Right then, Sally calls out to him and hurries over with breakfast in hand, assuming he must be starving after such intense training. Geely explains that Grandpa has promised to train him properly if he passes a certain test, and this leaves Sally stunned. She quickly encourages him, insisting that he will definitely succeed and finally awaken his true attribute. Geely is puzzled because he thinks healing is his attribute, but Sally clarifies that healing is simply his God-given profession, not his elemental affinity. His actual attribute can still awaken based on his own potential. She goes on to explain that her attribute is fire, Grandpa's is thunder, and Bobin's is shadow. Geely brightens up, saying he can't wait to see what kind of spirit power awaits him. She then describes how their gaming world is split into 5 distinct regions: the Latanya Desert known for trade, the volcanic Magaria to the west where dragon riders reside, the frigid northern Kesencito filled with raging monsters and crystals, the Bergama Forest on the eastern side home to elves and mystical creatures, and finally the southern Chibitique land where master-crafting dwarves live. According to rumors, the Palace of the God links directly to the God World's endless sea, and reaching it means reaching one's ultimate destination. Sally finally realizes that these rumors might actually be true, and Geely assures her they are, promising they will escape this place one day. She smiles warmly at him, but the moment is cut short when Grandpa suddenly walks in, assuming Sally has just confessed something to Geely, causing her to stumble over her words in embarrassment. The old man then focuses on Geely, asking if he's prepared for the test, and Geely confidently states that he is. Grandpa begins his explanation. No matter the race, everyone shares access to elemental powers, the invisible forces that form the foundation of their world, such as light, water, or thunder. To awaken his element, Geely must sense it flowing through him, just as Grandpa channels thunder, and allow it to surge through his entire body. With that, Grandpa touches the ground, opening a swirling portal. He tells Geely that this magic will take him to an unknown monster dungeon, then hands him a sword and explains that he has 3 days before the gate reopens. Geely's assignment is simple but deadly. Defeat the Beast King and bring its head back. Only then will he pass. But along the way, Geely must also awaken his elemental power, because without it, defeating the monster is impossible. Grandpa gives him one final chance to quit, but Geely only smiles and promises he'll return with the head. He then receives a mission alert from his system, hits confirm, and is instantly pulled into the portal. As soon as Geely disappears, Grandpa tells Sally the truth. The monster Geely is facing has incredibly tough defenses, and only someone who fully awakens their element can slay it. Forcing him into danger is the fastest way to trigger that awakening. Meanwhile, Geely arrives in the dungeon and begins exploring. The sand is pitch black. The sky is dark without a single glimmer of light, and the air reeks terribly. He checks his system to figure out how he's supposed to fight a boss with his current stats, then decides to grind some side missions to level up first. A sudden attack comes from behind, but he dodges it just in time. He realizes he's already been spotted and turns to see a flying creature called Dotom. Drawing his sword, Zili rushes forward with full confidence. He's no beginner. He battles fiercely, his whole body humming with adrenaline, slicing through monster after monster and collecting valuable experience. He defeats so many that leveling up becomes quick and satisfying. Elsewhere, Bobin is training alone, repeating to himself that no matter how much he works, it still isn't enough. He strikes the rocks so hard that they shatter, frustrated over how he failed to beat a basic healer like Zili. Even Grandpa Wubulei had to tap into a special power to stop him, which only makes Bobin even more curious about the mysterious boy. Back in the dungeon, Zili is enjoying the non-stop action, cutting down creatures like they're nothing. After countless battles, he finally reaches level 25 and earns 45 points. Just when he thinks he's done, the system tells him he needs to unlock the medical store at level 15, which frustrates him because it'll cost nearly everything he's earned. But he also knows putting it off will be worse later, so he unlocks it immediately. New recovery and enhancement potions appear, and he grins, realizing they'll let him bounce back quickly during fights. It almost feels like gaining a second life, boosting his confidence even further. With only 2 levels left to go, hunger kicks in, so he buys some bread. Though he can't help comparing it to Sally's buns, which tasted way better. After wandering for 2 long hours, boredom sets in, but he still follows the map's direction. He immediately begins allocating his newly earned attribute points, spreading them across physique, strength, magic, and defense to harden his overall build. Back in the desert, Sally can't shake her anxiety about Zili and asks her grandfather whether he will truly be safe facing such a terrifying monster. The old man calmly explains that he placed a mark on the sword, and if Zili's life is ever in danger, he can pull him out instantly. Unsatisfied, Sally presses him for more details, prompting her grandfather to set aside his tools and claim that he stumbled upon the place by coincidence while hunting, but he refuses to go deeper and quickly dismisses her questions. Sally, however, can tell something isn't right. Later, Grandpa takes a quiet walk, speaking to himself as he admits that Zili would never abandon his desire to leave no matter what. So the only way to protect him is to let him witness how cruel the world truly is and force him to give up that dream. Even though he believes Zili stands no chance, he still secretly hopes the boy will slay the beast, because deep down he also believes Zili might be the one to free them all. Meanwhile, Zili continues his search for the monster's lair when he suddenly hears cries for help. Turning around, he spots a woman fleeing with her baby, both clearly terrified, and he's baffled as to how they ended up in such a lethal zone before the woman begs him to save them. In the distance, he sees 3 monsters approaching, 2 massive brutes escorting a smaller one. Yet all 3 radiate enough menace to make the woman freeze in fear. These Latonia monsters resemble lumbering war machines, boasting enormous strength and experience, and the trio standing before Zili are no exception. He quickly notices that the one in the center possesses far greater intelligence than the others, prompting him to draw his sword and prepare for combat. This also confirms he is closing in on his actual target. Though questions swirl in his mind about the woman and child, there's no time to hesitate, as their safety comes first. The Beastman sneers and demands that Zili lower his head and surrender, but Zili has never known how to submit. Enraged, the monster orders his 2 guards to rip them apart, yet they fall effortlessly under Zili's blade, defeated as if they were insignificant pests. Having grown much stronger through leveling, Zili feels a surge of excitement. The Beastman then commands his remaining guard to attack, but the terrified creature turns tail and flees, while its master screams for him to return. Left with no choice, the Beastman declares he'll kill the boy himself, already pressed to his throat, warning him to drop his weapon or be sliced open. Zili demands to know why he was hunting the woman, and the Beastman claims he serves God, insisting that killing him would bring down a divine curse. Zili responds by slashing close to his face, making him howl in agony. He warns that the next strike won't miss unless the Beastman reveals the location of the beast's den. Breaking instantly, the coward points toward a mountain, and Zili confirms he's telling the truth since it matches the map's markings. The place is known as Black Rock Mountain, and as Zili studies it, the monster suddenly bolts toward the woman and child, attempting to use them as leverage while threatening to unleash his full power. His plan fails miserably when, in a flash, both Zili and a mysterious stranger charge him from opposite sides, leaving the beast utterly disoriented. Struck simultaneously, he's sent spinning through the air like a thrown disc. Once the dust clears, Zili and the newcomer exchange glances, and Zili compliments the blonde man's impressive technique. The feeling is mutual, and Zili soon realizes he isn't alone, as more humans step forward. Curious, he asks why they're here, and the blonde explains that 3 days earlier, he and his companions were suddenly transported to this world, during which chaos broke out and beastmen abducted his teammates. While searching for them, he encountered other captured humans. He introduces himself as Joss, a warrior, then gestures to Falorga the assassin and Rachel the healer. Z Li immediately takes a liking to them and treats them with warmth. Joss then asks if Z Li knows why they were summoned here, but even Z Li has no answers. At that moment, the beastman tries to slip away, only to find himself surrounded by the group, trembling as he hurls hollow curses their way. Z Li silences him by calling out his true name, shocking the monster into stunned silence as he wonders how it was discovered. Z Li coldly tells him that if he wants to survive, he must answer every question honestly. The beastman begs, claiming he's already told the truth, but Z Li isn't convinced as he already knows these details. Desperate, the monster argues that he's merely a low-ranking member of the tribe whose role is to gather humans as offerings for his god, a statement that fills both Z Li and Joss with murderous fury. Back in the desert, Grandpa Wu Bu Lei attends a council meeting in Delk Town, where one chairman accuses him of losing his mind for still chasing legends about God's palace after all these years. Hicks, the green-haired wind mage, scoffs and claims that even if the palace exists, its guardians are unbeatable, especially since the old man is placing his hopes on a child who hasn't even awakened his elemental abilities. He warns Grandpa about the punishment for offending God, suggesting it would be wiser to kill the boy and beg forgiveness instead. Grandpa fires back, stating that the god Hicks fears already treats them like insects, torturing them at will, and that the council is perfectly willing to trade innocent lives for false peace. He declares they aren't heroes at all, just cowards surviving by sacrificing others. Enraged and terrified, Hicks screams and attempts to threaten him with magic, only to find a thunder shield already surrounding the old man. With a final, resolute declaration, Grandpa walks away, saying he can no longer stay silent while innocents are offered up. And if standing against God is the price to stop it, then he will face that battle without hesitation. Hicks begins charging his power as well, but another council member immediately steps in and stops him, leaving the green man visibly shaken. Meanwhile, out in the desert, Z Li finally comes to a heavy realization. This world is no longer just a game to him. The people he has met aren't NPCs at all, but real, living humans, and that means he can't walk away without helping them. At that moment, he recalls something from his previous life, a story about an ancient Egyptian god whose palace was sealed away by the powerful god Rashan. He wonders if Kabli's palace might be hidden near the monster's den, but after checking the coordinates, he discovers the palace and the den lie in completely different directions. This leads him to suspect the monster could be guarding a different god's domain, but his thoughts are cut short when Joss calls out, telling him to head toward the beast den with the rest of the group. Zhili simply smiles in response. He explains that Rachel can stay behind by creating a magical barrier and boosting her elemental abilities, allowing her to protect the woman and her child. Rachel accepts the responsibility without hesitation. As they set off, the captured beastman warns them that entering the den will mean certain death for all of them. Zhili doesn't take the warning seriously and instead mocks the beastman, humiliating him so badly that he screams in frustration. Joss tightens the ropes around him and drags him along, despite the beastman desperately trying to avoid going with them. Inside the cave, they spot other beastmen lounging around, surrounded by scattered human skulls. Elsewhere, a group of monsters carries a cage packed with humans to their king, presenting them as food while awaiting further orders. The king, his eyes glowing neon green, glares at the beastmen in fury, but suddenly a powerful force freezes every monster in place, killing them instantly. A hero appears at the center of the chaos and introduces himself as the great mage Ngam, declaring that he will rescue all the innocent captives. Behind him stands an entire army of heroes, united by their desire to avenge the countless innocents slaughtered by the monsters. Ngam gathers his mana and unleashes a storm of icy blades at the king, who remains seated on his throne as though completely unfazed. The attack fails when the ice spears shatter against an invisible barrier protecting him. Shock spreads across Ngam's face as the king retaliates, lifting him high into the air with sheer power. The other heroes can only watch helplessly as Ngam screams in agony, his body racked by magic, until he finally explodes in the sky. Fear and disbelief grip the remaining heroes as they tremble at the sight. The Beast King Sunil, a level 85 monster, calmly turns his attention to what he considers his next meal. Nearby, low-ranking beastmen observe how effortlessly a group of young heroes cuts through monsters, with Z Li standing out more than anyone else. Curious about where the boy came from, the beastman watches him closely, while Z Li himself focuses on the fact that they are nearing the den, judging by how increasingly difficult the enemies have become. Checking his system, Z Li notices he isn't leveling up as quickly as he expected. Ross approaches and asks whether he's struggling with the intensity of the battles, pointing out that Z Li is the first person he's seen defeat such powerful monsters without relying on elemental powers. Laughing, Ross claims that Z Li is his destined partner and even offers him a position in his guild once they're done. This catches Z Li's interest, but Ross quickly ruins the moment by bragging about the girls at his place, leaving Z Li embarrassed. Another party member bluntly reminds Ross that his so-called guild only has one member, himself, causing Ross to trip over his words. With no time to waste, Falorga gestures toward a cave, stating that the monster's den has to be there. Zeely turns to the Beastman for confirmation, only to notice a piece of rope on the ground and realize the captive escaped during the fighting. However, the Beastman didn't flee the area. Instead, he ran straight into the den to warn the king and earn rewards for his cleverness. Standing at the cave entrance, Ross sniffs the air and confirms they've found the right place, prompting the group to head inside. They pass through piles of skulls without encountering any beastmen, which immediately puts Ross on edge. Soon, they reach a fork splitting into 3 separate paths and decide to divide their forces. Ross marks everyone's hands with the Flamegate seal, explaining that they can activate it to teleport to one another if they face danger or uncover important information. Before splitting up, he reminds them to chant the mantra he taught them if anything goes wrong. As Zeely rushes down his path, he realizes he urgently needs to level up, but the corridor appears empty. He keeps running until he stumbles upon corpse-eating ghouls devouring human remains. Excited, he draws his sword, only to notice that he has entered their lair and they aren't alone. The Beastman who escaped earlier kneels before his king, reporting that 3 insignificant humans have invaded the sacred den, confident that the traps laid inside will kill them soon. That confidence proves misplaced for Zeely, who slaughters the ghouls effortlessly, though the low experience gains irritate him. Still, he keeps fighting until he has wiped out 999 corpse-eating ghouls, each having reached level 14. Along the way, he acquires professional skills such as Holy Light, Annihilation Slash, and Blessings. Allowed to choose only 2, he carefully selects Blessings and Annihilation Slash as his combination. His thoughts drift to his companions, wondering if they're safe, but the Flamegate mark on his hand hasn't reacted yet, reassuring him that they're fine for now. Turning back to the incoming ghouls, he prepares to continue. Elsewhere, Joss unleashes Hellflame Stomp, wiping out monsters in a single strike, but suddenly a haunting melody fills the air. The ghouls freeze and turn toward a girl walking toward them, her shackles already broken. She begins to sing, and Joss immediately steps forward, accusing her of being the one who sent all those monsters after him, which only makes the girl smile back at him. Suddenly, the ground splits apart, and countless hands burst out, grabbing Joss and dragging him downward. He struggles desperately as he realizes the unsettling girl is now standing right beside him, eyeing him like prey, and Joss recoils in pure disgust. Convinced this is where his life ends, Joss panics, but at that very moment, Zeely arrives, and in a single swift strike, slices off her arms. The hands instantly release Joss, and the girl stares in shock, unable to believe someone could overpower Dakar. Zeely casually throws the monster's severed head toward her, mocking that it was an effortless kill. Enraged by this, she lets out a piercing screech, and Joss tries to warn Zeely, but the sound waves have no effect on him. With another clean motion fueled by his new blessing, Zeely finishes her off, saying her voice is irritating. As Joss praises him, his hands suddenly start vibrating and they realize the flame mark is reacting, signaling that Falorga is in danger. Falorga is shown battling a level 55 Hell Serpent, completely outmatched and barely able to defend himself. The serpent blasts him away, sending him crashing into the wall as blood spills from his body, and Falorga believes he will die alone in the beast's lair. Just in time, Zeely arrives and blocks the serpent's attack with his sword. Zeely checks on his new friend, but Falorga is too stunned by Zeely's overwhelming strength to respond. Joss treats Falorga's wounds as Falorga admits he has never faced a monster like that before, making them realize that encountering the Beast King would surely mean death. Zeely stops their spiraling thoughts and tells them the real obstacle is not the Beast King, but their own fear. He explains that to escape this place, he must fight the Beast King and countless monsters like him, so he has no time to hesitate or fear for his life. Declaring that this battle must end, Zeely prepares as the serpent attacks again. Joss launches the first move, landing a powerful kick that slams into the snake. The serpent retaliates with flames, but Joss deflects them, giving Falorga the opening he needs to activate his elemental ability and use Hand of Jizo to seize the serpent by the throat. Joss signals Zeely, who leaps into the air and drives his sword into the serpent's armored body, cracking its defenses and destroying 20% of its protective layer. Unsatisfied, Zeely continues stabbing until he finally pierces through the Hell Serpent's scales, then drags his blade downward, slicing the creature open from top to bottom. Watching the serpent collapse, Joss and Falorga celebrate the victory, and as a reward, Zeely obtains a hidden item known as the Hell Flame Gauntlet. He accepts it and examines the blazing gauntlet now resting on his hand, while Joss wonders how Zeely managed to grow so powerful in such a short time. Their attention is drawn by noises echoing from a dark corridor, where they discover the Beastman they captured earlier. Without hesitation, Joss and Gili attack, sending him flying across the room and likely shattering his bones. When questioned, the Beastman explains he got lost after the Beast King activated the traps, which immediately makes sense to Gili. The Beastman keeps resisting until Joss kicks him again and demands he lead them to the Beast King at once. He takes them to a wall and chants a hidden incantation, causing a massive door to open. Back in the desert, Grandpa Wubule observes the worsening weather before opening a cupboard containing his armor. Bobin suddenly appears, commenting that the old man has finally stopped being stubborn and accepted his armor as hope that they will escape the desert. Although Grandpa did not sense Bobin's arrival, Bobin explains that he wants to join the group leaving the desert because he may face the monster that killed his parents, and his determination convinces Grandpa that stopping him would be pointless. Back in the monster den, the Beastman points toward the hall leading to the king, but Gili asks about the captives who were imprisoned. When the Beastman says he knows where they are, Gili tells his companions to go rescue his friend instead. Joss takes this personally, believing Gili sees them as weak burdens, but Gili denies it. Suddenly, a warning alert flashes in Gili's system, revealing that the boss is nearby and his survival chance is only 10%, which frustrates him since leveling up still wasn't enough. Falorga asks what's wrong, but Gili brushes it off, saying he will face the Beast King alone while they save the captives. Joss refuses, declaring he will never abandon a friend on the battlefield. Gili argues that their odds are terrible, but Joss insists it doesn't matter because it's time to repay Gili for saving their lives. Gili realizes he has always handled everything alone since childhood, leaving him isolated. But now he finally has companions by his side. The terrified Beastman urges them to enter quickly, afraid the Beast King will kill him if he follows. So the heroes step inside on their own, only to find the throne room completely empty. The Beast King is nowhere to be seen, confusing even the Beastman, since the king is always seated there. Suddenly, the door slams shut behind them, and Falorga is lifted into the air by an unseen magical force. Joss and Gili stare in horror as Falorga coughs up blood, and Gili rushes forward to attack, only to crash into a powerful protective barrier. Still, the impact breaks the spell on Falorga, allowing Joss to catch him before he falls. Gili then looks toward the throne in disbelief as Lord Senil reveals himself, realizing that the Beast King appeared without detection and effortlessly blocked his attack. Falorga attempts to activate his abilities, but his injuries leave him barely standing, and even when Joss tells him to slow down, Falorga pushes him to keep fighting. In the next moment, he unleashes his trademark technique, warping Joss straight toward the king. Joss takes a massive leap as Falorga strikes him with his hand, while Gili swings his sword at the same time. The three of them launch a combined assault, but it completely fails, leaving the Beast King unharmed. With a casual flick of his hand, the king blasts all three heroes away. Gili quickly realizes the king's boss skill is coating his entire body, and checks on Falorga and Joss to see if they're still alive. The king then rises and announces that he wants to toy with the humans since they've caught his interest. He vanishes in an instant and suddenly reappears in front of Joss, punching him in the stomach before he can even react, making him cough up blood. Joss snaps back and swings his iron fist again, but every strike is effortlessly blocked by the king. Without warning, the king smashes his head into Joss, shattering his bones and slamming him to the ground in defeat. And as the monster prepares his finishing blow, everyone cries out in horror. When the dust clears, the king looks down only to find Joss's body missing, realizing Gili has already grabbed him and pulled him out of danger. Falorga rushes over and Joss apologizes for holding them back, but Gili dismisses it and swears he'll take care of that bastard himself as he draws his sword. The king grows irritated, having his fun interrupted, and when Gili looks unimpressed, the monster attacks. Gili counters like a true hero, activating the gauntlet he received earlier and stopping the blow cold. Joss stares in disbelief, realizing just how powerful Gili has become, while even the king is stunned that his attack was blocked for the first time. Which only excites him more. The king unleashes his power, releasing the 7 hells upon Gili, but Gili blocks again with his sword and, using his newly blessed power, strikes back so hard that the king is sent flying through the air like a tossed tomato. Gili presses the attack relentlessly, vowing to avenge his friends and every innocent victim, and then unleashes his annihilation slash, blasting the monster's crown away. However, the king vanishes using his ability and attempts a sneak attack. Gili hurls his sword toward the movement, but it's not enough, and the king strikes him, knocking him off his feet. Gili gathers himself and prepares to fight back just as the Lord Beast releases his elemental power, transforming from a hideous creature into a handsome lord whose presence is far more sinister and overwhelming. Hatred burning in his eyes, the monster flicks his hand, summoning a massive goat skull from which hundreds of wolves pour out, forcing Gili to hold them back with his bare hands. That still isn't enough, as the Beast King attacks from behind with his skull wand, catching Gili off guard and sending his sword clattering to the ground along with his blood. Even while gasping in pain, Gili forces himself back to his feet. The king then drains Gili's elemental power with his hand, making Gili believe this is truly the end, as he has never felt such raw strength. Now evolved into an advanced monster, the king assaults the already wounded Gili, kicking and throwing him repeatedly until he's left barely alive on the ground. Laughing, the monster upgrades himself even further and begins spewing hateful insults about humans being weak and worthless, his voice so terrifying that Gili starts to believe the words, triggering memories from his real life and confronting his unresolved inner pain. In his fading vision, his mother appears, telling a younger Gili that it's time to go home. Suddenly, a white light bursts from Gili's near-lifeless body, and his sword morphs into a massive, monstrous weapon. The Monster King watches as Gili stands back up fully restored, now clad in upgraded armor and wielding an enormous blade. When Gili was on the brink of death, he heard someone calling his name, and upon opening his eyes, he found himself no longer in the cave, but drifting through deep space, staring around in confusion. Thinking he had died, he's interrupted by a voice telling him he's still alive. Turning around, Gili sees an old man floating before him, and when the man calls him by name, Gili is stunned. The old angel admits he doesn't even know who he is, only that he's been trapped there for thousands of years, and that a voice foretold someone would come to free him, that person being Gili. With no patience for explanations, Gili insists on leaving immediately, but the old man reaches out, asking Gili to become his master. He explains that the only way to escape is for someone to accept that role, practically begging him. Feeling sympathy, Gili agrees and shakes the angel's hand, triggering a surge of electricity and a strange dark energy flooding into his body. In an instant, Gili returns to the Monster King's lair, realizing the old man spoke the truth. He can now feel the overwhelming power within him, and a notification appears announcing that he has awakened the element of chaos, shocking Gili as he realizes the old man was actually his elemental power. The Monster King is left completely stunned because only moments ago the kid should have been dead, yet now he stands radiating even greater power than before. Gili himself understands why, as his system informs him that unlocking elemental power has boosted all of his abilities. He then notices the old man's sword and realizes it has reached its final form as well, and with renewed confidence, he launches himself forward and charges straight at the Beast King. The monster acts arrogant at first, but Gili shatters his defensive barrier as if it never existed. Enraged, the king attacks with everything he has. Yet a single chaotic burst, slash from Gili sends the massive creature flying like an insect. Although the monster manages to leave a scratch on Gili, it changes nothing because Gili follows up by unleashing his elemental power and completely erasing him. In a matter of microseconds, the boss Sunil is slain, and Gili's system announces that the mission is complete, rewarding him with a black treasure chest. Under the warm sun of the Latnaya desert, Bobin and Grandpa calmly plant rice while Sally worries about Gili and whether he is safe. Grandpa states that if Gili does not return by today, he will personally go search for him. But at that exact moment, the ground trembles and a portal opens. And once the violent wind settles, Sally and Bobin turn to Grandpa, who explains that such a shockwave only happens when a powerful monster dies in the desert. This confirms that Gili has defeated the boss and awakened his elemental power. Back at the battlefield, a weak beastman stares at Sunil's corpse in disbelief, while even Filgra and Joss struggle to comprehend what just happened. They look at Gili, questioning how he gained elemental power and ended the fight so quickly. And when Filgra asks what he plans to do next, Gili answers that he must check on the prisoners while they recover from their injuries. He then asks the beastman to guide him, and the terrified creature immediately agrees. As Gili moves, he falls into deep thought, starting to believe that his arrival in this world was no accident. And suddenly he senses something pulling him away. In an instant, Grandpa Wubule brings him back to the desert. But before Gili can speak, exhaustion overwhelms him and he collapses. He wakes up to see a woman floating above him, asking how long he plans to sleep, and Gili immediately thinks it is his mother, hugging her tightly and saying how much he missed her, only for the woman to reveal herself as Bobin, causing Gili to snap back to attention in embarrassment. Bobin hands him food and tells him their duel will happen once everything settles, then leaves the room, while Gili stares at his hand, trying to recall what happened to his new companions. His system activates again, reminding him of the Beast King chest, and he pulls out the key he earned after defeating Bobin, which fits perfectly. The system displays multiple rewards, including Lord Sunil's Ring of Protection and a legendary hidden item revealed to be an egg. Gili initially assumes it is food, but when the egg starts cracking, he realizes it might be a pet, only for a baby to burst out and call him Papa. Gili panics, completely confused about what he has received, annoyed that a child could be a reward, and attempts to access the menu for answers. But the system tells him he must upgrade first. This only frustrates him more as he notices the baby clinging to him and repeatedly calling him Papa. He lifts the child awkwardly, declaring he is not the father and has more important things to do, deciding to leave the baby with Grandpa Wubule and Sally. But this makes the child cry uncontrollably. No matter what Geely tries, the crying does not stop, and the system suddenly issues a warning that he is being punished for hurting the child, starting a countdown that leaves Geely completely confused. In the next moment, Geely realizes he is no longer at Grandpa's house but in an icy desert instead. He tries to comfort the baby, explaining that he is not abandoning him and is simply afraid of caring for another life. But before it matters, a level 40 monster appears behind him, and Geely gulps as the system assigns him a new mission to kill all nearby monsters within 30 minutes or face death. Though irritated, he has no choice when the monster attacks, and Geely declares that the baby is not allowed to die, activating his elemental power and drawing his special sword. He enters his final form without hesitation, becoming serious as the child cheers in excitement, proud of how cool his papa looks. Meanwhile, back in the desert, Grandpa Wubule heads towards Geely's room when Bobin stops him, asking if he has gathered people to search for God's place. But the old man explains the situation is worse than expected, as the villagers believe rumors and refuse to leave. Bobin grows furious and declares they can go alone if no one helps. Yet Grandpa knows the monsters outside are far stronger and they would not survive, ending the discussion and asking Bobin to check on Geely. Sally arrives as well, eager to see which elemental power Geely awakened, and rushes toward the room, leaving Bobin watching her with jealousy as she runs to see another man. At the same time, Geely continues slaughtering monsters relentlessly, cutting down everything in his path until the system finally announces mission completion, allowing him to breathe in relief. The child celebrates joyfully, singing as he realizes his father is a hero, and moments later, both of them are teleported back to the desert, where Geely exhales in relief, just as Sally bursts into the room, staring in confusion at the tiny baby and wondering who the child belongs to. Out of nowhere, Sally bursts into excited squeals the moment she spots the tiny, unbelievably cute baby. She immediately asks Geely where it came from, and the boy awkwardly answers that the kid laid an egg, a reply that even makes Sally laugh, though Geely himself looks frustrated as he adds that he can't even get rid of the little guy. At that moment, Grandpa Wubule walks in, confused by all the noise, and Sally proudly presents the baby to him, claiming that Geely brought it back as a souvenir. Bobin looks closely and remarks that the baby wasn't around earlier, prompting Geely to brush it off by saying he found it in the monster's den. Grandpa quickly loses interest in the discussion and sends Bobin and Sally away, and before leaving, Sally cheerfully says goodbye to the baby. The baby then turns to Geely and complains that he's hungry, which Geely instantly understands, confidently saying that his big sister Sally will make food for him. Suddenly, the old man begins apologizing, leaving Geely confused as he asks what he did wrong. Grandpa explains that sending Geely to face a high-rank monster was reckless and that the boy could have lost his life because of him. But Geely calmly disagrees, saying it wasn't only Grandpa's decision and that he survived because he finally realized that arriving in this world was no coincidence. Geely then remembers the moment during the battle when he was pulled into a mysterious dimensional space and met an uncle who claimed he had been waiting for him for a very long time. That man asked Geely to accept him as his master, and realizing he had no real choice, Geely agreed, which is how he obtained the power of the chaos element. Curious, Geely asks whether everyone who awakens elemental power experiences that same dimension, but Grandpa explains that it doesn't happen to all. He then mentions that he once read about the chaos element in an ancient book, instantly capturing Geely's attention since he wants to understand the truth behind his power. Grandpa begins recounting what the book described, saying that thousands of years ago, the evil god Moros descended upon the human world, spreading destruction, bloodshed, and terror everywhere. Humanity was forced to fight back as people were being slaughtered without mercy, and just as extinction seemed inevitable, a hero named Hesiod emerged, wielding the power of chaos to battle the demons. Hesiod formed an army and waged war against Moros and his followers for many years, eventually defeating the evil god and sealing Murius within the hell tower known as Althalos. However, the victory came at a cost, as Hesiod had to remain sealed there as well. Geely wonders aloud if the person he met in the dimensional space was that very hero, and Grandpa agrees that it's likely. But before they can continue, Sally interrupts them. Grandpa immediately falls silent, insisting that they must keep this information secret until they can be certain. Soon after, Sally brings out an enormous spread of food, causing Geely to shower her with praise. Embarrassed, Sally blushes and credits the chef instead, revealing that the cook is actually the same beastman from the cave, which shocks and irritates Geely as he angrily demands an explanation. The beastman, Lasadola, calmly responds that Grandpa brought him here, which is why he treats the old man and his family so kindly. Grandpa explains that since they know very little about the outside world beyond Latania, he invited Lasadola to help broaden their understanding. At that moment, the baby waddles over to the beastman and begins pestering him non-stop. Gili then asks about his companions Joss and Falorga, and Sally reassures him that her grandfather already sent them to the town's treatment station to recover from their injuries. With that settled, everyone begins eating, endlessly praising Lasadola's incredible cooking, unaware that Lord Hicks is still watching Zili from afar, irritated that the boy continues to live peacefully among them. Meanwhile, deep in the netherworld, a massive dragon flies toward a castle where a man with smooth silver hair stands admiring purple roses. When the dragon lands behind him, the man calls him Arglass, and the beast transforms into a human form. Arglass greets Hades and asks why he was summoned so urgently. With a faint smile, Hades explains that he can no longer sense Sunil's energy from the world and fears that Sunil may have died. Arglass is stunned by this revelation, knowing that Sunil should be impossible to kill, which is precisely why Hades orders him to travel to Latania and uncover the truth behind what happened. Loyal as ever, Arglass accepts the mission and vows to investigate thoroughly. Back in Latania, Sally listens in disbelief as Zili describes how many beasts he defeated inside the cave, while Bobin scoffs at the story, confidently claiming that he could have accomplished the same feat just as easily. Zili fires back with an insult, which angers the shadow assassin because the boy is making fun of him in front of his crush. Sally then asks which element Zili awakened, but he avoids answering by asking what elements people usually awaken. She explains that healers commonly awaken the light element, although she has seen some healers gain other strong elements as well. Zili casually says that he might have awakened the light element, and Bobin agrees, trying to make Zili appear weak. However, Zili knows that his grandpa told him to keep a low profile for now. The group reaches Delk's healing center where Joss and Falorga are staying, and they rush inside to check on them. Suddenly, a portal opens under Zili, and before he can react, he is taken away from the healing center. When Sally turns back, both Zili and the baby are gone. Elsewhere, feeling bored and irritated, Zili finds himself inside a hall and looks around, trying to understand why he was brought there. The green-haired Hicks suddenly steps out from the shadows and explains that he summoned Zili using magic. He introduces himself as one of the town's guardians and says this place can only be entered by the strongest. Zili, not caring about the speech, asks why he is there. Hicks says he knows Zili killed the Beast King and insists that they want him to join their team no matter what. Zili refuses and says he is leaving. Hicks then loses his calm and starts ranting, saying he knew Zili was a brat and that he hates him. He reveals that his people are already heading out to kill Zili's friends because they are considered useless. This stops Zili, and Hicks gives him one final chance to save their lives. Zili stares back and warns Hicks that this is his last chance to stop his team, or they will die. At that moment, Zili's chaos power rises, and Hicks also prepares to fight. Back at the healing center, Sally and Bobin wonder where Zili went. Suddenly, Bobin smells something strange and realizes something is wrong. He warns Sally, who turns just in time to sense something coming at her, but Bobin pulls her back with his shadow hand. He protects her head and sends out his clone to fight. The clone is injured, and Bobin looks at the cloaked man and demands to know how he dares to attack Sally. The enemy draws his sword and prepares to battle. Meanwhile, Zili easily avoids all of Hicks' attacks while still taking care of the baby. This becomes exhausting because he is worried about the child. But the baby laughs happily, thinking his father looks cool. Zili looks at the baby with affection. But Hicks is annoyed and admits he underestimated Zili's power, saying he will use Zili's divided focus against him. Zili tells him he does not understand why they are fighting since they could work together to deal with the monsters outside the barrier. Hicks refuses, smiles cruelly, and says that will never happen. He then claims that Wu Bu Lei has been hiding the truth from everyone and reveals that there is a deal where monsters stay away from the village in exchange for human sacrifices, which is why humans do not interfere with them. He adds that Wu Bu Lei agreed to this because losing a few weak people is better than risking the whole village. Zili is shocked and realizes the Guardians never planned to leave the desert and intended to stay permanently. Hicks laughs, saying it is a perfect outcome because the monsters outside were sent by God and cannot be defeated. He then insults Zili's grandpa, calling him fake and self-righteous for not understanding the true danger beyond the barrier. Zili remains unmoved and says he will not stay there like a coward. He defends his grandpa and declares that he will leave the desert and does not care what stands in his way, because he will kill anyone who tries to stop him. Hicks laughs at his innocence, but Zili is serious as he places the baby on the ground and finally prepares to attack and show his true power. Hicks then makes a fatal mistake by saying he will kill the baby as well. In the very next moment, Zili punches Hicks in the stomach, making him cry tears of blood. Zili continues punching him repeatedly until Hicks is sent flying away. Hicks struggles to look up and asks who Zili really is, realizing he is no ordinary fighter. At the same time, outside the healing center, people flee as explosions erupt. Sally and Bobin are revealed to be fighting the mysterious attacker. Sally uses her fire while Bobin uses his shadow clones and attacks to gain control of the fight, working together smoothly. Bobin distracts the enemy while Sally prepares her Hellfire Blaze to strike from behind. When the dust clears, the impact area is empty, which shocks and frightens them because such a strong attack should have done serious damage. Bobin then realizes they were only fighting a clone. Sally suddenly senses someone behind her, and Bobin tries to warn her, but it seems too late as the real enemy is about to strike. At the last second, Gili appears and kicks the man away from Sally like a true hero. Gili tells the man that he will not accept any deal that risks his friend's safety. Seeing the fierce look in Gili's eyes, the man suddenly disappears. Sally breaks the silence by asking what is happening, and Gili says they must return quickly because the old man could be in danger. Meanwhile, Grandpa Wubule is studying the element of chaos. According to the prophecy in his book, demons and gods will soon descend, and the world will be swallowed by endless darkness. But only the one who masters chaos can save humanity. Just then, the children enter, and the old man casually asks if they already met their new friends. They explain what happened, and he is shocked that they would attack his children. Sally asks if he knows who attacked them, and the old man explains that Gili fought Hicks while Sally and Bobin fought the dark attribute magician Lucius. When he reveals that these men are the town's guardians, Sally and Bobin are confused about why they would attack them. The old man then explains that Hicks, Lucius, Sriracha, and Dorop were the first to arrive at the village hundreds of years ago and founded the town. At that time, Latonia was worse than hell, and people had to fight monsters and other humans who would kill them for food and trade. Later, Dorop saved them by giving seeds, teaching farming, and creating a civilized society. Even so, leaving the town has always been taboo because one mistake could anger the monsters outside and put everyone's lives at risk. As the old man speaks, Gili interrupts and asks why he is leaving out the part where people were sacrificed to save the rest. This shocks Sally and Bobin, who cannot believe the old man would do such a thing. Gili continues, saying that Wu Bu Lei made a dirty deal to send people to their deaths in exchange for protection. He asks why the old man did not tell them the truth from the start, and accuses him of putting them in such a position. Sally speaks up to defend her grandpa and says that he is one of the 12 heroes and would never do something like that. But Wu Bu Lei stops her and says that the boy is correct. This leaves Sally and Bobin shocked because they always believed their mentor was flawless. The old man then looks at Gili and asks what he would do if his loved ones were on one side and complete strangers were on the other. He says he only did what any normal person would do and chose the people he cared about because he is not a perfect being. He admits that he still wonders if his choice was right or wrong. When the agreement was made, the Guardians used Sally and Bobin's lives to control him and threatened to kill them in front of him if he ever broke the deal. He explains that he is ready to die for the cause, but he cannot watch his loved ones suffer because they matter more to him than anything else. Sally hugs him and tries to comfort him. Even Gili understands his reason and asks if that was the only reason. Bobin and Sally feel offended and think the boy is accusing their grandpa. But Gili then asks that if he had to choose again between the two sides, who would he choose? The old man stays silent because he understands what Gili means. Gili apologizes in case he spoke wrongly, but the old man stops him and says that he should have acted long ago, but he had already lost hope. That changed when Gili appeared and made him see the world from a new perspective. He then looks at Sally and Bobin and tells them that they are grown now and can decide for themselves. If they do not want to fight, he can arrange a safe place for them. But the kids refuse to back down. They say they will support their grandpa no matter what, and that it is finally time to fight back and protect innocent townsfolk. They all stand together with fresh hope and a clear mission. The old man then says that if they want to leave the town, they must defeat the 4 guardians. Gili has already beaten Hicks, but he is the weakest one, so the remaining 3 will be much tougher. Grandpa believes the trio will come after them once Hicks recovers, so they do not have much time. He tells the kids that they must all push past their limits and grow stronger. From now on, their lives will depend on their strength, and after hearing his words, the kids prepare themselves for the biggest battle of their lives. Sometime later, Gili is outside enjoying the sunlight and thinking about how worried his mother must be about him. Suddenly, he sees a small baby almost fall after chasing a butterfly and saves her just in time. He starts playing with her and opens his system. He notices that even after killing the Beast King and gaining so much XP, he only leveled up 10 times, and the strange uncle from his dream has vanished. He then decides to spend his unused skill points to increase his defense and agility. At that moment, a message icon suddenly appears on his screen, and when he opens it, he sees hundreds of messages from Bursting Sweetheart. He is left stunned when he realizes the profile belongs to his crush Qin Xiaomei. He has not yet understood that he can communicate with the outside world, so he opens the messages and discovers that his schoolmate is worried about him. At first, she is angry that he did not join her game, but her anger quickly turns into concern when she realizes that Zi Li has gone missing. At the same time, Zi Li wonders if the game is displaying his online status. He then notices another message saying that his mother is moving to another city and that a bald uncle has visited his old classroom. He is confused, unable to understand why his mother would move or why a strange uncle would appear among his classmates. Something must have happened to his physical body back at home, and the only explanation he can think of is that his mother is selling the house and relocating to another city for his treatment. However, he soon realizes that the best hospital in the country is still in their current city, so moving would be pointless, and they also have enough money to pay for proper care. His head begins to ache as he tries to process everything that could be happening back home. The baby notices this and tries to play with his father, but Li tells him to stop, causing the poor child to fall and hit his head. In an instant, chaos breaks out as he starts crying, and Li panics, knowing this will soon trigger punishment. The piercing sound of the baby's cries activates the punishment, and the boy lets out a helpless sigh, reflecting on his choices in life. He is immediately transported to a place with an active volcano, where a massive dragon breathes fire down at him. Li turns toward the baby, hands him a flower, and apologizes. The baby smiles, giving him a brief moment of relief, and he braces himself for another fight. Meanwhile, at the healing center, Joss stands by the window, feeling grateful that Wu Bu Lei, one of the 12 heroes, is there. However, he begins to overthink why the old man would be so interested in the details of Ji Li's battle with the Beast King. He turns around and asks about Wu Bu Lei's past missions and how he managed to defeat countless enemies to become the strongest lightning warrior. He finds it hard to believe that such a powerful warrior could also be trapped in this place. Wu Bu Lei replies that those days are long gone and that he is now only an old man who needs a favor from Joss. Hearing this, the boy's interest is sparked, and he asks what could be so important that the old man would come to him personally. Wu Bu Lei explains that it concerns Ji Li and his fight with the Beast King, and that he wants Joss to hide the crucial details of the battle from anyone who asks about it. Joss agrees, saying that he trusts Wu Bu Lei's judgment without hesitation. With that, the old man prepares to leave, saying he does not want to trouble him any further. Joss cannot stop thinking that if someone as strong as Wu Bu Lei is trapped here, then escaping this hell is nothing more than a dream. At that moment, the old man proposes a solution, saying that if Joss truly wants to escape, he has a method and is currently gathering people to help locate God's place. This idea lingers in the boy's mind, and he continues thinking about it when Filorga comes to visit him. Filorga is surprised to see how quickly Joss is able to stand. Still lost in thought about the old man's words, Joss shares everything with Filorga, not realizing he is speaking to someone of such legendary importance. Joss explains that he follows the same warrior path as Wu Bu Lei and grew up seeing his portraits everywhere. Filorga is equally shocked to learn that someone who once traveled to the Black Sea is also imprisoned in this hell. Joss goes on to explain that the 12 heroes are not just titles, but the 12 strongest individuals in the world. Every 5 years, a global tournament is held to determine who is the strongest. Each guild sends 5 warriors, and the 12 who reach the finals are recognized as the top heroes. That year, the Thunderbird Guild stunned the world because Wu Bu Lei made everyone remember his name through his overwhelming power. Even though his guild lost to Chen Butong's Yunjia Guild and Azursk's Phoenix Guild, both of which barely won, Wu Bu Lei vanished afterward. Many believed he had died in battle, but in truth, he went alone to the Black Sea to defeat the terrifying monster Quince and bring the war to an end. As Joss recounts this story to Filorga, he cannot help but smile, realizing that his friend Ji Li's fighting style resembles that of those legendary heroes. Hundreds of years ago, when Wu Bu Lei was still young, he endured countless painful experiences. One of his most traumatic memories is bleeding while warning his companions to stay alert, only to later learn that Sally's parents, Morse and Luna, had been his friends. They were killed by an unknown man, and that memory continues to haunt him even now. After their deaths, he chose to take Sally in and raise her himself. Over the years, he lived with guilt and regret, unable to accept the truth behind his suffering. He convinced himself that being trapped in this hell forever was his punishment for failing to save his friends. But he eventually realized that Sally is innocent and should not share his fate. She deserves to leave this place and live freely in the outside world. To protect her, he placed the lightning god's enchantment within her body so that if her life is ever threatened, the power would activate, making it impossible for even God to harm her. Holding the locket with his friend's pictures, he silently vows not to forget his promise again. Meanwhile, Ji Li's punishment comes to an end, and he struggles to catch his breath, realizing that this trial was much harsher than the previous one. Suddenly, a message appears on his screen, stating that every time he triggers punishment, the monster's comeback ability increases by 10%. This frustrates him as he realizes that each repetition will only make the challenge more difficult. He then notices the little baby staring at the screen, trying to read it, and finds it amusing since he cannot understand the words yet. Suddenly, a realization hits him that the baby can see the system. Neither Wu Bu Lei nor Sally were able to see it, yet the baby can for some reason. He tests this by asking if he knows something he does not, but the little boy simply shakes his head, making him realize it is pointless. Even so, one thing becomes clear to him. He is able to receive messages from the outside world because of the baby. At that moment, a voice calls out from behind and Ji Li turns around to see Sally, Bobin, Joss, Filorga, and Wu Bu Lei walking toward him. He feels relieved and happy to see that his friends are safe, and Joss explains that since Geely never came to check on them, they decided to visit him once they recovered. The boy apologizes for not coming sooner, explaining that he ran into something urgent and did not want to disturb their rest, but it looks like they have already fully recovered. Joss quickly gives credit to Bobin and Sally for their recovery, but the shadow assassin immediately denies it, trying to maintain his tough image. Geely asks why they came to see him, and they answer that they have decided to join Wu Bule in his search. He then notices the baby beside Bobin and is shocked by how quickly he has grown. Trying to hide his surprise, he starts to say that the baby's name is Luca, but before he can finish, Bobin cuts him off and demands that they begin training instead of wasting the old man's valuable time. Joss tries to object, and the two immediately start arguing. Seeing this scene, Wu Bule bursts into laughter, causing everyone to pause and stare at the unexpected sight. The old man says that after such a long time, he finally feels alive again, while Sally realizes this is the first time she has ever seen her grandfather laugh so freely. He then tells them to relax for now, because once the training starts, no one will be spared, even if they cry. Joss asks whether the training will really be that harsh, or if the old man is just trying to scare them, and Wu Bule replies that the challenge is so severe that even some of the 12 heroes might fail. Joss pushes for more details, and the old man explains that in a duel, victory depends on strength, speed, and stamina. To defeat an opponent, they must identify weaknesses, because even a single mistake can completely change the outcome of a battle. As he speaks, he swings a strange wand in his hand, and clones of all the kids suddenly appear. Wu Bule explains that in team battles, the result depends on coordination, cooperation, and familiarity with one another. This magical tool, created by the great mage Hulinkum for guilds preparing for major battles, produces clones that possess all the skills and elemental abilities of the original, but with 1.5 times stronger combat power. Although the clones cannot cause real physical harm, pain is still felt, and once a fatal strike is delivered, the person is eliminated, leaving the rest of the team to fight at a disadvantage. He warns them that on the path to God's place, they will inevitably lose companions and face brutal and merciless situations. With that warning, the kids prepare themselves for a mock battle against their own clones. Back at the house, the Beastman is cooking and asks the old man if he wants anything special, since he is preparing food for 3 people. Wu Bule corrects him, telling him to cook enough for 20, which makes the Beastman turn around in surprise and ask if guests are coming. Before the old man can explain, the door suddenly flies open and a group of young warriors storms inside. They all look exhausted and irritated, and the Beastman complains, wondering how the training could have ended so quickly when it had only lasted half an hour. The kids do not answer and simply keep eating, asking for more food because they are still tired and hungry. Breaking the silence, the old man praises them, saying they managed to last more than half an hour against their own clones. The room instantly becomes tense and quiet. Wu Bule asks why they look unhappy, but his words only make everyone more upset. Suddenly, all the frustration pours out as the young warriors complain that they could not even fight properly and barely managed to injure any of the clones. Joss explains that he has fought many high-level monsters in one-on-one battles, but this was different because the clones were far too clever. Ji Li adds that their opponents were not mindless beasts, as the clones could think and plan just like they could. He recalls that when the clones separated and hid, everyone assumed they would be forced into individual fights, but instead they were ambushed together. Ji Li points out that while his own clone took down the others, the fight eventually turned into a 5-against-1 situation. In that sense, they had already lost before the battle truly began. Hearing this, the old man realizes that Ji Li quickly analyzed the situation and understood the outcome early on. He explains that team battles are not about individual strength, but about cooperation and bringing out each other's potential. He compares it to a game of chess, where some pieces must attack, others defend, and some may even sacrifice themselves so others can reach the king. He also explains that the clones do not think independently, but instead analyze their abilities and form the most effective strategy possible. Grandpa emphasizes that this was the simplest and most efficient method to defeat an inexperienced team, which offends Bobin and makes him speak up in defense. Ji Li suddenly understands the old man's meaning and says it is similar to solving a math problem. If they do not fully understand it, solving it is impossible, and trying without understanding only leads into traps. Because of this, they must learn to fight as a team, recognize their weaknesses, and figure out how to defeat enemies effectively. Satisfied, the old man decides to end the training for the day and promises that he will teach them proper teamwork starting tomorrow morning. Everyone agrees and returns to their rooms. Lying in bed, Ji Li reflects on his choices, realizing that even though it was only training, watching his teammates fall while he could do nothing made him feel powerless. He imagines that if this had been a real battle, someone would have died. He blames himself for still being too weak and vows to grow strong enough to protect those he cares about. The night passes as he remains trapped in his doubts. His thoughts drift back to his childhood in the real world, remembering how his mother once received a great offer from a well-known company, but chose a different job with flexible hours so she could take better care of him. That company later turned out to be terrible. He recalls a time when his mother asked her boss if he could wait for her on Wednesday afternoons until her shift ended. The arrogant boss refused, claiming those were his busiest days, and then began flirting with her, suggesting that as a single mother she did not need to work so hard. Ji Li, furious, kicked the boss and shouted at him for disrespecting his mother. His mother hurriedly apologized, explaining that he had a very long day and pleading with the boss to forgive her son. However, the boss attempted to attack Ji Li and even threatened to kill him. His mother stepped in like a true hero, effortlessly slamming the boss to the ground as if he weighed nothing. She then told Ji Li that she never wanted to work for that man anyway, and apologized to her son, promising that they would share a proper meal together another day. This memory hardens Ji Li's determination to protect his mother no matter the cost. Still, he understands that with his current strength, he is far too weak to protect anyone. Just as these thoughts trap his mind, an odd, tingling feeling spreads across his chest, alerting him that the weird uncle from before has returned. Ji Li speaks into the quiet, asking if the voice he heard truly belonged to the weird uncle and if it did, where he was standing. When he sees no one nearby, confusion sets in because the voice had sounded unmistakably real and extremely close. He turns to Luca and asks if she heard anything, but the little baby only shakes her head, far too young to understand. Assuming he is simply exhausted, Ji Li begins to wonder if he is hallucinating. Suddenly, the baby clings tightly to him, her small and cute face pressed against his chest as he gently wraps her in a blanket to comfort her. Holding her, he starts thinking about how his mother raised him on her own, and is amazed by her strength and perseverance. Those thoughts soon turn to the promise he made to his mother, that he would return safely and restore life to the way it used to be. He knows he must become stronger, defeat the Guardians, and leave the town with Grandpa Wu Bule and his new companions. Although he has already killed the Beast King, the strongest opponent he has faced until now, he realizes that brute force alone is not enough. As he remains lost in these thoughts, the weird uncle's voice suddenly sounds again, snapping Ji Li back to focus. The voice praises him for finally realizing his errors, leaving Ji Li completely stunned. The weird uncle goes on to explain that unlike the mindless Beast King, the clones created by Grandpa Wu Bule that Ji Li fought possessed real combat skill and were far stronger and more dangerous. Ji Li finally turns around and sees the uncle standing within a space-like realm, with a cherry blossom tree blooming above him. He understands that he was not imagining anything, and that the voice truly came from the uncle. Looking around, Ji Li asks where he is and how he suddenly appeared in such a place. The silver-haired uncle, carrying the wisdom of countless years, explains that this is the world of Ji Li's inner heart, and that he has lived here ever since Ji Li became his master. Ji Li never imagined such a world could exist, yet he does not question it. The uncle continues, revealing that after leaving the previous face dimension, he was extremely weak, and only now had the strength to appear before Ji Li. Ji Li thanks him sincerely, knowing that the uncle's help was the reason he managed to defeat the Beast King. Then, gesturing toward the flowers around them, Ji Li asks why his inner heart is filled with blossoms. The uncle explains that a person's inner world reflects what they value most deeply, and these flowers are tied to Ji Li's consciousness in ways he cannot yet understand. Ji Li struggles to grasp this, wondering how red flowers could be connected to him when he has never cared about them before. The uncle reassures him that their true meaning will be revealed in time, because he has come for something far more important. The silver-haired man then asks, what if he could make Ji Li much stronger than he is now? As he speaks, his body begins to shine with an intimidating glow. He explains that although he has only recovered 1% of his combat power, it is more than enough for Ji Li to start understanding the terrifying strength of the chaos element. At present, Ji Li can only release 0.001% of that power, which leaves him shocked, because even at his strongest, it is still an unbelievably small amount. The man clarifies that this is only an estimate, but Ji Li still finds it hard to accept. He then cuts off further discussion, stating firmly that Ji Li must learn to unlock his hidden power and grow stronger, because if Ji Li dies, the old man himself will disappear as well. At that moment, a new system notification appears before Ji Li, announcing the beginning of the Chaos Element Master's trial. The mission requires him to survive for 3 minutes against his opponent to receive a massive amount of exp. Ji Li reads the task and realizes that enduring for only a few minutes could grant him tremendous rewards. The weird uncle then stares directly into his eyes and openly challenges him. Ji Li draws his sword, activates his elemental power, and declares that he is prepared to fight. At the same time, inside a dark and unsettling hallway, several people are talking about whether Ji Li is truly as powerful as the rumors claim. Hicks, who fought Ji Li earlier, is still recovering from injuries so severe that even his companions have never seen anything like them. Although he has been healed, he cannot accept that a mere boy defeated him and tries to justify it by insisting that Ji Li was only lucky. Suddenly, a mocking voice echoes through the hallway, and Hicks turns to see a woman in white looking at him with pure contempt, as if he were nothing at all. She states that if Ji Li had fully used his killing move, Hicks would already be dead. Enraged, Hicks demands to know how Lucius dares to speak to him that way. She lifts her veil and explains that Lord Dorup merely ordered him to test the opponent's strength, yet he ended up injuring himself so badly. She cannot understand how someone so useless could be counted among the town's 4 honored guardians. Hicks attempts to defend himself, but his words fail as she continues her analysis. In her view, Ji Li is indeed strong, but he is still nothing more than a barbarian lacking true strategy. Even with Grandpa Wu Lei training him in front of Lord Dorop, they are all just ants waiting to die. Meanwhile, the shadowy figure who attacked Sally earlier reports that the old man has begun recruiting the townspeople, and because he is one of the 12 heroes, the citizens believe they can escape. However, if Lord Dorop steps in, complete chaos will break out and the townspeople will fall into panic, making that plan impossible as well. Lucius asks what the shadowy man plans to do, and he uses his magic to reveal a horrifying monster standing behind him. The creature's terrifying form shocks both Hicks and Lucius. It is the Latania Wanderer. The figure hiding in the shadows orders the beast to attack, and like a crazed wolf, the creature lunges forward, charging toward hundreds of innocent townspeople in a violent frenzy. As decided earlier, Ji Li keeps running from the weird uncle to complete his mission. He silently apologizes to him, because all he can think about is that he just needs to avoid fighting for 3 more minutes to finish the task. Once the timer ends, he plans to train however the uncle wants. But then he suddenly realizes the old man has not caught up to him yet, and that feels wrong. Before he can think it through, a swirling hurricane forms in front of him, blocking his path and forcing him to stop. That is when he realizes this fight is far more dangerous than simple training. The strange man is truly trying to kill him, and if not for the Beast King's protection shield, Ji Li would not have dodged even a single strike and would have died the moment the battle began. The gray-haired man finally speaks, mocking Ji Li's pathetic attempt to run, and asking if he really believes he can avoid a direct fight. He warns that such childish tricks are useless against a seasoned warrior, but Ji Li proves him wrong when he suddenly points behind the old man and shouts a warning. When the uncle instinctively turns his head, Ji Li seizes the chance and sprints away at full speed. He checks his system timer and sees that only a little time remains. If he can keep this up, the mission will be completed. Trying to buy more time, he shouts back and suggests they take a short break first, promising to fight after he recovers his breath. The gray-haired man replies that running away will never solve anything. Before Ji Li can even blink, the man transforms and appears right behind him, warning that a true enemy never allows you to rest. He swings his sword, but Ji Li disappears again. At that moment, the old man realizes the boy has used the same technique as him, vanishing with unbelievable speed. It turns out Ji Li used the burst slash he gained earlier in the Beast King cave. Ji Li then sees the man hovering in the air and realizes how close he came to defeat. Since the last attack was purely physical, he barely managed to counter it using his own slash technique. At the same time, the gray-haired man is just as shocked, wondering how the boy moved so fast that it felt like teleportation. Ji Li checks his system once more and panics when he sees that his skill has a 5-minute cooldown. If the man attacks again before the timer resets, the mission will fail. With only 30 seconds left, he chooses to gamble and drops his sword to the ground. Acting as if he is surrendering, he says he understands the value of combat experience but needs just 1 minute to rest before continuing. The strange man lands on the ground and sighs, reluctantly agreeing only because he wants Ji Li to explain how he performed that technique. Ji Li wonders if he means the burst slash skill, and before he can think further, his system announces that the mission has been successfully completed and all EXP has been collected. Feeling slightly relieved, he starts explaining how the skills work, saying they follow an inner command. When he focuses on a move, his body instinctively carries it out without hesitation. The gray-haired man frowns, admitting that most of Ji Li's explanation makes no sense. However, what truly catches his attention is the technique itself, because he has seen it before. This revelation shocks Ji Li, who cannot understand how anyone else could have used that skill. The old man sinks into deep thought, saying that the way Ji Li moved felt strangely familiar, as if he once knew it well. Yet no matter how hard he tries, he cannot remember anything clearly. Ji Li then recalls what his grandfather once told him about the legend of Hesiod. Since the uncle gave him chaos elemental power, he realizes it is very likely that the man standing before him is Hesiod himself. If that is true, then helping him recover his memories could also help uncover many mysteries. Ji Li speaks with confidence, saying that he knows the man's true identity. He declares that he is Hesiod, the great warrior who defeated the evil god Maraus and saved the world from destruction. He asks whether hearing the name brings back any memories, but the man only stares blankly, unable to tell if Hesiod is even his name, let alone remember who he truly is. Meanwhile, back in the Lantonia desert, the beastman who also serves as the household cook is sleeping soundly, snoring peacefully. Bobin, however, lies awake, unable to rest because something about the silence feels wrong. He sits up, tense, then sniffs the air, and recognizes a faint scent that makes his heart race. The realization strikes him. It is the same scent as the mystery monster. Before he can react, the roof suddenly collapses, sending debris flying everywhere. The loud crash jolts the beastman awake, and he jumps up in confusion, still half asleep, and trying to understand what is happening. In the shifting shadows, glowing red eyes appear as a monstrous figure steps forward, staring at its next prey. The beastman finally regains his senses and climbs out of the rubble. He desperately searches for Bobin, fearing his friend may be trapped beneath the debris, suffocating or already dead. Just as he looks around, a large rock suddenly slams into his face, leaving him in pain and disorientation. Wondering who could be throwing rocks in the middle of the night, he turns and sees a monstrous figure smashing the ground while Bobin battles it fiercely. The shadow assassin materializes behind the monster and swings with his shadow sword skill, but the creature blocks the strike with overwhelming power, blasting Bobin into the ground. Even after crashing down, Bobin's rage burns even hotter because he knows his judgment is not wrong. The beast demon standing before him is the very same monster that slaughtered his parents. Hatred and resolve blaze in his eyes as he swears that no matter what form it takes, even if it is reduced to ashes, he will never forgive or forget its sins. Drawing both swords, he releases his shadow elemental power and declares that every single day since that tragedy has been spent preparing for this moment. Ironically, he never imagined the monster would come to him instead. The beastman reaches out, asking if he is okay and demanding to know why a monster is inside their home. But Bobin, consumed by vengeance, screams for him to leave, swearing that tonight he will tear the creature apart limb by limb, crush every bone, and spill its blood across his parents' graves. With that vow, he charges forward at full power, determined to end it once and for all. Meanwhile, the town's guardian, Lucius, watches everything unfold from the top of a mountain alongside her fellow guardians. Hicks, the green-haired healer, remarks that the selective attacks happening around the town feel suspicious. The shadowed figure beside them replies that he has already summoned additional demon beasts into the village, and when the timing is right, they will lure Wu Bu Lei out so that Lord Dorop can personally kill him. Hearing this, Lucius dismisses Hicks, warning him not to fail his mission again as she plans to deal with the new healer, Zili herself. With a smirk, she hopes the boy will last long enough to make the fight entertaining. Back at the farm, the beastman bursts into Wu Bu Lei's home, shouting that something terrible has happened. He reports that Bobin is fighting a beast demon, and the instant Wu Bu Lei hears this, his protector's instincts ignite. His eyes darken with concern, and just as he is about to move, a violent explosion echoes from the town. Shock and anger surge through him as he realizes just how severe the situation has become. Without hesitation, he orders the beastman to find Zili and ensure he stays close to Sally for protection. Not wasting a second, Wu Bu Lei gathers his power and disappears in a flash of light. Elsewhere, Zili remains trapped within his inner realm, speaking with the gray-haired man and trying to remind him that he is Hesiod, the hero who once defeated the evil god and sealed him inside the Hell Tower Altalos, at the cost of being imprisoned there himself. When Li asks if he remembers any of it, the man answers that his mind is still completely blank. This frustrates Li, who jokes to himself that in every anime or manga, memories return the moment someone hears their name. But the gray-haired man insists he truly remembers nothing about this world, and the name Hesiod feels like nothing more than an empty title. Even so, after witnessing Zili's abilities, he admits that for the first time in ages, he feels a faint sense of familiarity, like a distant echo of belonging. Hearing this, Zili begins to question why all these strange events are happening and what his true purpose here might be. He reasons that if his uncle really is Hesiod, then restoring his memories could reveal the answers he has been seeking. The gray-haired man then challenges him to a duel, asking Zili to fight with everything he has so the battle might help unlock his lost memories. Finding the idea reasonable, Zili agrees and summons his sword once more. However, before they can begin, a faint voice suddenly cuts through his thoughts. It is Luca's voice, crying out in distress. The sound alarms him, because the baby should be sleeping safely at home. Back in the real world, Lucius has already appeared inside Zili's room, standing over baby Luca and the boy's resting body. With a sly smile, she teases the baby, saying she came only for Zili, not for her. Yet she notices the little girl clinging tightly to her father. Mocking her again, Lucius suggests that perhaps she should kill them both so they can travel to the afterlife together. Just as she prepares to strike, both the boy and the baby vanish like a sudden gust of wind and reappear behind her. Zili, now fully awake and alert, thanks little Luca for protecting him. He faces Lucius with calm resolve and tells his daughter not to worry anymore, explaining that compared to all the monsters and punishments he endured in the dungeons, the woman standing before them is nothing he cannot handle. Back in the town, chaos erupts as monsters rampage through the streets, slaughtering anyone in their path and ripping apart everything around them. Amid the devastation, a small girl sits beside her fallen mother, crying and pleading for her to wake up because she is scared and alone. As the child sobs, a monster notices her and lunges forward, ready to devour her. Just as its claws are about to strike, a burst of triple thunder power crashes down from above, smashing into the creature with blinding force. When the monster turns, it sees Grandpa Wu Bu Lei standing firm, shielding the trembling girl in his arms. The other monsters snarl and rush toward him, realizing he is the only one capable of stopping them. Meanwhile, Joss and Falorga fight desperately to defend the town as well. Between clashes, they shout to the old man asking what is happening and why the monsters suddenly began attacking. Wubule explains that the town is protected by a constantly guarded barrier meant to keep demons out, but a crack must have formed somewhere, allowing the creatures to slip inside. He adds that an invasion like this could never have happened without help from within, meaning someone in the town has betrayed them. As he connects the pieces, his voice grows colder, and he mutters that the traitors must have lost their patience. Joss and Falorga trade puzzled glances, unable to grasp his meaning, but Wubule's face hardens as the truth dawns on him. He explains that these monsters are most likely nothing more than a diversion, because the Guardian's real objective is to kill them. With that, he gently pats the little girl's head to reassure her, then turns toward his two young allies. He instructs them to save as many townspeople as they can, and bring everyone to his house to keep them safe. Joss hesitates, and asks where he plans to go. The old man answers that he needs to reach the outer area to seal the barrier before it completely collapses. The golden-haired boy objects, warning that the outer area will be swarming with monsters and insisting they should accompany him as support. But Wubule has already ignited his lightning elemental power. His eyes blaze as he tells them there is no need for backup and that their responsibility is to protect the townspeople. Before they can continue arguing, he activates his first royal thunder flash and propels himself into the sky, disappearing in a streak of blue light. At the same time, over at Wubule's house, Lucius and Ji Li are once again locked in combat. Lucius appears both impressed and surprised by how much Ji Li's speed has increased since their previous fight. As they clash, the boy suddenly pieces everything together and realizes that it was Lucius, disguised as a hooded figure, who attacked Sally and Bobin earlier. He never expected the notorious guardian Lucius to be a woman, and without thinking, he calls out to her, asking why the auntie attacked him. The comment instantly infuriates her, as she cannot fathom why a grown man would address her that way. Ji Li tries to reason with her, saying that if they can find God's place, everyone in the town could finally be freed, so he cannot understand why the Guardians are determined to stop them. Lucius replies icily that Lord Dorop invested enormous time and effort into building this town, and she will never allow anyone to shatter the peace they worked so hard to create. She insists that the so-called God's place is nothing but a myth, and that defying divine order is simply foolish rebellion. Ji Li refuses to retreat. He draws his sword and declares that God's place is real, and anyone who tries to stop him or hurt his friends will pay the price, because he does not take lightly those he cares about. His body begins to glow as he channels his elemental power, revealing to Lucius just how much stronger he has become. Lucius, however, looks more entertained than impressed. She mocks his arrogance, saying that defeating Hicks has made him overconfident, and reminds him that the green-haired guardian he fought was the weakest of the four. She warns that she herself is nearly as powerful as Lord Dorop. To demonstrate this, she summons her Shadow Sword Wolf, a level 45 beast famed for its speed and agility, and orders it to attack. Ji Li does not hesitate. He activates his Annihilation Slash and destroys the creature in a single blow, its form disintegrating into dust. Lucius freezes in shock, refusing to believe what she has just seen. She cannot accept that the boy neutralized her attack so easily, but she is not done yet. With an enraged scream, she summons 3,000 Shadow Swords and hurls them toward Ji Li. The boy calmly lifts his hand and activates his protection ring, the same one he obtained from the Beast Cave, creating a radiant barrier around himself. The swords crash against it and shatter without causing any harm. Smiling coldly, he mocks her, asking if that was truly her strongest move. Lucius clenches her fists in anger, realizing she had gravely underestimated him. Determined to show her true strength, she stomps the ground and rises into the air, her power surging violently. She announces that the real fight is only just beginning and that he is about to witness her full power. A massive demon manifests behind her, a gigantic sword clenched in its jaws, its eyes blazing with fury as it fixes its gaze on Ji Li. Lucius watches with pride, eager to see how long the boy can last against such terrifying force. At that moment, a new system mission appears before Ji Li, ordering him to defeat the enemy leader, protect the town's integrity, and destroy the beast. Without any hesitation, he accepts the mission, prepared to face whatever awaits him next. In the outskirts of the town, monsters continue to flood in through the shattered barrier, while the guards struggle desperately to defend the boundary. They cut down as many enemies as possible, but the overwhelming number of monsters quickly pushes them to their limits. Yet their efforts seem futile as monsters keep pouring in without pause. One soldier turns toward the magicians and urgently asks how much longer it will take to repair the cracked corner, admitting they cannot hold on much longer. The young magician looks helplessly at her teacher and admits that their energy is simply too weak to seal it completely. The teacher knows she is right, but he refuses to let despair spread among the ranks. Forcing his voice to remain steady, he shouts to the soldiers that they must hold their ground because protecting this area is their duty. Even if it costs them their lives, they must not allow the monsters to break through the barrier. His words spark renewed resolve in the two soldiers, Wagner and Liu, who tighten their grips on their weapons and prepare for the next assault. That fragile hope is instantly shattered when another deep crack forms in the barrier.